Hello and welcome to Frontrunner Motorsport. Today we are taking a look at the best 10 Formula 1 drivers to come out of the land of the rising sun, in honour of Yuki Tsunoda, who is set to become number 21. And it'll be interesting at the end of his time in Formula 1 to see whereabouts the talented young Japanese driver would end up on the list. But for now we will look at the other 20 drivers and find the top 10 amongst them. As for the ones who didn't make the cut, well, a lot of them were in the 1970s and didn't stand much of a chance, but the top 10 list is a very talented one, although no Japanese driver has ever been a race winner in Formula 1. Can Yuki Tsunoda be the first? The ones who didn't make it on the list are Hiroshi Fushida, who never qualified for his sole appearance, nor did Naoki Hattori. Yuji Ida qualified for a few races, but it would have been better for everyone involved if he hadn't. Masami Kawashima didn't even start, his sponsors were pulled before race day and he was replaced. Hideki Noda didn't finish any of his 3 races. Toshio Suzuki did finish both his starts, but it was nothing spectacular in the Larousse. Kunimitsu Takahashi, Noritaki Takahara, Masahiro Hasemi and Kazuyuki Hoshino may have been the first Japanese drivers on the grid, but they don't make the list based on their 1 or 2 appearances in outdated machinery. That leaves the best 10 Japanese drivers to ever race in Formula 1. So sit back, relax, and let's begin.
Welcome to Frontrunner Motorsport.
Number 10, Sakon Yamamoto. Yamamoto was not a very good race driver. In his entire career, he has only ever won 2 races. In Japan in 2004 in a Japan Formula 3 race, and 2005 in Super GT. He has not won any championship, only ever drove for backmarker teams in Formula 1, and managed to finish in the top 15 twice. But he seems to have been given drives based on very little, beginning with testing for Jordan in 2005 and as reserve driver for Super Aguri in 2006. He replaced Frank Montagny at Germany and made his Formula 1 debut, retiring from his first 4 races. He managed to finish the last 3 races of 2006, although 16th, 17th and 16th. He was replaced at Super Aguri by Anthony Davidson and once again became a reserve driver for the team in 2007, but managed to get a race seat with Spiker for the end of the 2007 season, where he either crashed or finished last, except for Japan, where he managed his best ever result with a valiant 12th place. He left Formula 1 for a few years after this, racing in GP2 and GP2 Asia, where he didn't really accomplish anything, before a surprise return at the top with the HRT team, essentially being a mobile chicane, swapping the seat with Christian Klein, but he got 7 more Grand Prix out of it. His last association in Formula 1 was as a test driver for Virgin in 2011, before leaving motorsport altogether, except for a couple of Formula E races for Amlin Aguri, which he didn't finish, and in 2020 he raced in the Superlights, the Super Formula Junior Series, but again didn't achieve much. Outside of motorsport, he works in medicine and social support in Japan, so he seems to be a good guy, but he was a pretty useless Formula 1 driver. Number 9, Taki Inui. A driver better known for the unfortunate irony of being injured by the safety car whilst helping the marshals to put a fire out on his car, Taki Inui had an unremarkable career. A single race with Simtek in Japan in 1994 ended when he crashed on lap 3, before moving to footwork for a full season in 1995. His best finish was an 8th place in Italy, but he struggled to keep pace with teammate Gianni Morbidelli until Morbidelli was replaced by Max Papis, who Taka Inui fared much better against. But apart from the safety car incident in Hungary, and a bizarre incident in Monaco practice when he was being towed back to the pit lane, he was hit by a pace car and his broken footwork rolled into the barrier. Everything else isn't really memorable, and Inui saw out his career with a few GT races, scoring a few points in Japan, but fading into obscurity shortly after. Number 8, Taranosuke Takagi. Takagi was a great racing driver. He had success in Japan, winning the 2000 Formula Nippon Championship, as well as a Super GT Championship in 2005, along with good results in IndyCar, including a 5th place at an Indy 500. His career in Formula 1 wasn't as good. In 2 full seasons, he never scored a point, but it was with a dying Tyrrell team and a backmarker Arrows team. After testing for Tyrrell in 1997, he got the full race seat in 1998. This was Tyrrell's final year in Formula 1, and it wasn't pretty. Takagi struggled through the season, although unlike Brazilian teammate Ricardo Rossi, he at least qualified for every race. He joined Arrows for 1999 and got his best result in Formula 1 at the opening round in Australia with a 7th place, but the season went much the same as 1998 and he saw his Formula 1 career out with 8 retirements in a row. Apparently he had communication issues with both teams, but he was a popular driver and went on to have a little success after Formula 1. Number 7, Kazuki Nakajima. Son of Japanese legend Satoru Nakajima, who we will get to later, Kazuki Nakajima debuted at the final round in Brazil in 2007, replacing Alexander Wurz, and got a decent 10th place, but did run over his pit crew, so mixed results at best for the team. Williams signed him for 2008 anyway, and he got his best result at Australia in the opening round with a 6th place. He scored sporadic points through the year, including at Monaco, making him the first Japanese driver to do so. He was retained by Williams for 2009, but several crashes and no points saw him replaced for 2010. He was announced as a driver for the Stefan GP team, but they never made the grid and he was left driverless. Since then he has won Super Formula twice and Le Mans 3 times in a row, so he hasn't done too badly for himself. Number 6, Yukio Katayama. The most amazing thing about Yukio Katayama is that he lasted 6 seasons in Formula 1 despite not accomplishing much. But as most of that was with backmarker teams, honestly Yukio Katayama probably did as good as he could have. Winning the Japanese Formula 3000 Championship in 1991 led to a Formula 1 drive with LaRousse for 1992. He had no luck with the unreliable LaRousse, but was running as high as 5th in Canada before the car once again broke down. His sponsor, Japan Tobacco, got him a drive with Tyrrell in 1993. Again, the car was unreliable and it was a disappointing season for Yukio Katayama, but he was retained for 1994. The car was a bit more competitive. Yukio scored a few points, but again reliability was an issue. He was running 3rd in Germany before his throttle stuck open and ended his race. 2 more years in the uncompetitive Tyrrell yielded no more points, and neither did a move to Minardi in 1998. Both were a struggle, and that was the end of Katayama's time in Formula 1. He was tipped for a move to a big team midway through his career, but he was diagnosed with spinal cancer that scuppered the move, and he even delayed his treatment to race for Tyrrell. Yukio Katayama is still a keen sportsman, running his own cycling team and climbing mountains. Number 5, Shinji Nakano. Made his debut in 1997 for the Prost racing team, mostly thanks to their Mugen Honda engines. It was a tough time for Nakano, but he got a couple of points finishes, but he had a lot of retirements too. Prost got Peugeot engines for 1998, and that meant Shinji Nakano was moved on. He ended up at Minardi for 1998, where he didn't score any more points, but did fare better than Argentine teammate Esteban Terrero. He left Formula 1 after 1998, did some testing for Jordan in 1999, before racing in karts and IndyCar, and a few attempts at Le Mans, but no real success to speak of. Number 4, Aguri Suzuki. The ever-popular Aguri Suzuki made his Formula 1 debut with LaRousse in 1988 at his home race in Japan, stepping in for the unwell Yannick Dalmas. He signed on for his first full season with Zakspeed in 1989. It was Zakspeed's final year in the series, and Aguri Suzuki managed to fail to qualify for every single race. Undeterred, he returned to LaRousse for 1990. It wasn't great, but he did at least score his first points before the Japanese Grand Prix, where Suzuki managed to get on the podium, becoming the first Asian driver to achieve that. He also had the second fastest lap in the race, proving it wasn't a fluke. This was as good as his Formula 1 career got. Another year with LaRousse in 1991 saw a single point at the season opener in Australia, but no other points finishes that whole year. In fact, he either didn't qualify or failed to finish every other race. He moved to footwork for 92 and 93, but no points finishes, and he was usually beaten by teammates Michael Alboreto and Derek Warwick. He'd have a single appearance with Jordan in 1994 and scored a final point for Ligier in 1995, before crashing and injuring his neck at Suzuka and announcing his retirement. He entered his own Formula 1 team, Team Super Aguri, in 2006. They scored a few points but disappeared midway through 2008. Number 3, Satoru Nakajima. Father of Kazuki Nakajima, Satoru was already 34 when he debuted in Formula 1, winning Japanese Formula 3000 5 times in 6 years, before getting a drive with Lotus in Formula 1 for 1987. It was almost unfortunate that he was partnering Ayrton Senna in his debut season because he was outshined somewhat. Senna took 2 wins and 3rd in the championship. Satoru got a best 4th and ended the year 12th in the championship. Joined by Nelson Piquet for 1988, and luckily both drivers didn't perform, with Lotus slipping further back down the grid. Satoru Nakajima got a single point at the season opener in Brazil before a year of struggling in the midfield, which didn't get much better in 1989 when Satoru Nakajima failed to qualify for 3 races, but performed well at Adelaide in the rain to take a career best equaling 4th place and proving many of his doubters wrong. He signed for Tyrrell in 1990, scored a few points but retired from most of the races before a final year again with Tyrrell in 1991, scoring points at the season opener before once again retiring from most races. He was meant to race for the Honda Works team that never materialised in Formula 1 in the mid-90s, but started his own team in Japan, and has had success in both Super Formula and Super GT, and launched the career of his son, Kazuki Nakajima. Number 2, Takuma Sato. One of the most successful Japanese drivers in motorsport generally, Takuma Sato had a mixed Formula 1 career starting with Jordan in 2002. He often struggled, had a massive crash with Nick Heidfeld that left a hole in the side of his car. Luckily Sato was unhurt and a good drive at Suzuka netted him his only 2 points of the season, and without a drive for 2003. But his Honda overseers kept him in the loop with BAR Honda, and Sato would replace a struggling Jack Villeneuve for the last race of the season, finishing 6th in Japan. He'd stay with the team for 2004 and would have by far his best season in Formula 1, scoring regular points and getting on the podium at the American Grand Prix. 2005 was the complete opposite. In fact, it was atrocious to Takuma Sato. He missed Malaysia through illness, the team was disqualified from San Marino for being underweight, and subsequently had a 2-race ban. He would be disqualified again in Japan for a collision with Jarno Trulli, and got a single point in Hungary. Despite Honda taking over the BAR team full time, they dumped Sato and he joined the new Japanese outfit, Super Aguri. He was by far their best driver, with scored the team's only points in 2007, before dropping out of Formula 1 along with the team after 4 races in 2008. Since then he has become a star of IndyCar, taking 7 wins, 2 of which have come at the Indy 500. Takuma Sato is an absolute legend, but his Formula 1 career is mixed. Number 1, Kamui Kobayashi. The man Jenson Button once described as totally crazy and very aggressive, Kamui Kobayashi came into Formula 1 after Timo Glock was injured, allowing for Kobayashi to sweep in and take to the track for the last 2 races of 2009. He held off eventual champion Jenson Button on his debut in Brazil, before going on to score his first points in his second race. He was expected to remain at Toyota for 2010, but after the team withdrew from Formula 1 with their tail between their legs, he ended up at Sauber. He was always a decent point scorer, usually outperforming teammates Pedro de la Rosa and Nick Heidfeld, and was retained for 2011, doing much the same despite a tough mid-season. But 2012 was his best year, a podium in Japan, doubled his points tally for the year, and still only finished 12th. In fact, he finished 12th 3 years in a row, but was a fantastic driver for Sauber, matching Sergio Perez for points per race, with 2.1, and Kobayashi had 20 more races for Sauber. Kobayashi disappeared from the grid for 2013 but returned in 2014 for Caterham in what was their last spluttering effort at Formula 1. It was a dreadful and disappointing season, with Caterham often switching drivers on the fly. Kobayashi did no better than a couple of 13th places before leaving Formula 1. Since then he has raced in Super Formula, as well as returning to Toyota in the World Endurance Championship, finishing 2nd at Le Mans 3 times, as well as winning the World Endurance Championship in 2020. Now, I am biased because I am a massive Kamui Kobayashi fan, but I truly think he is the best Japanese Formula 1 driver ever. For now, at least. So that is my list of the best 10 Japanese Formula 1 drivers from Japan. Do you agree or do you disagree? And as mentioned previously, where do you think Yuki Tsunoda will end up on the list? I think he has the potential to go all the way to number 1. Remember to subscribe. We have blown past the 150 subscriber stage quicker than I ever thought possible, so thank you all for your support. Leave a comment, a like, a share. Thank you for watching. More content incoming, so stick around and have a good one.